Welcome to the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast with your host, Mike DeHaan and Dan Austin. From wins, losses, horror stories, and tactics for optimizing your business, Mike and Dan take a real, uncensored deep dive into the ins and outs of running a full-time real estate investment and wholesaling business.
What's going on, guys? On this episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast, we are welcomed by Jason Wright, who, I guess, what's your business actually called? You probably should have clarified this before we
business is
I kind of know what you do, but yeah, go for it.
The business is called Intentionally Inspirational.
Okay, Intentionally Inspirational. And from what we've sort of gleaned chatting with you, it is your process for raising money. And you have a kind of an automated way that you've built out that's sort of tried and tested to help convert better on that problem that so many of us real estate investors have, which is, finding capital and how do we raise it? Especially these days, I feel like so many different, podcastings out there always talk about, just use other people's money to invest. This is how you can do it with no money. But what the fuck does it actually mean, right? That's kind of a big question. And
you got to find the people with the money.
You have to find the people. And not only that, but you have to have a process of, building trust and closing these people and that whole thing. There's a whole sales process. And it seems like you have kind of cracked that a little bit. Is that right?
Yeah, I'll clarify it a bit. So I am active campaign specific, and I help capital raisers with three big things. Thing one is nurturing new potential investors into their list, because what most people do is nothing, right? You join their list, you get their ebook, and nothing happens till they have a deal. And it's kind of like meeting a new neighbor and saying hi once, never talking to them again, and saying, hey, can I borrow your truck? 6 months later, it's a little awkward. So we help with that. We do help with the capital raising piece from an automation standpoint. Most people's process is very, very manual with that, right? Very basic. The final thing is we help people keep in touch with their current investors using automated task reminders and things like that. So from a really high level, that's kind of our micro niche and what we do.
Perfect. I love it. Cool.
Yeah. So is it all within the confines of Active Campaign within that box, or is it like touch other systems?
So we definitely hook up to other systems,
Okay.
like the front end, the landing page builders, the websites, webinar platforms, portals, whatever. But all the magic happens in Active Campaign.
Gotcha. Well, I'm excited to dive in because Active Campaign is a pain in my ass as I've tried to learn it, and so I want to. I want to know more.
Pain for you, huh?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, we use it for our dispo process, so we can definitely dive into that. But awesome. So that's kind of what you do. What's a little bit of your background? Kind of how did you get into this? Current business that you have. Obviously, you were an investor before, I take it. Like, what's your sort of backstory to get into this?
You would be wrong, my friend. It's an interesting
I would
story.
be wrong.
Yeah. You're hearing Intentionally Inspirational going, why the hell did you do that at the name? I don't get it. So I've had this business 7 years. When I originally started, I decided that I hated my life working for other people. I worked for a guy that was worth about $300 million, built his company from nothing, but he was a terrible human being, right?
Okay.
It was like, if this terrible human being without much education or real skills, in my opinion, can do this, surely I can work from home and at least pay my bills. So we're going to do it. I started the company Intentionally Inspirational thinking that I was going to build a company and do motivational speaking. Well, quickly after starting that, I was like, nobody knows who I am. There's no money in this. So I started blogging, talking about quitting the 9-to-5, even though I hadn't done so myself, and started learning some marketing to expand the reach of the blog, right? Upwork was the place that I discovered back in the day, was writing blogs and copy for other people, making a little money. Then I kept noticing, hey, that ClickFunnels thing I learned, other people are looking for help with that, and it pays a little better. So that's how I got started into marketing generally, was just seeing the opportunity, saying, hey, Mike, hey, Dan, I don't know what I'm doing, but I promise you I'll figure it out and I'll get it done. And people are like, okay. So I looked at it as on-the-job training. For a couple of years, I did that. And as we actually discovered there's a real full-time business here, we niched down and focused on funnels. So front end, back end traffic, all of that. And then more recently, we said, we're going to go super niche. We're going to go back into the funnel only, which is Active Campaign, what happens after people join your list. And I'm only working with capital raisers from now on because there's nobody else doing this that's like me and uses Active Campaign exclusively. So I created my own little micro niche, and here we are.
Sweet.
It's been the best decision in my professional life, by the way.
Nice. That's great.
Right.
No, I love that. That's entrepreneurship at its core, right? You identified a problem and you figured out a way to solve that problem. And what you did that I love, so many people don't do. And we talked about this with, our people in our instant investor program, which is a group coaching program quite a lot, is we have so many people who they know the problem's there, but they're like, I need to figure out how to solve it first before I approach the people. You kind of did the opposite, it sounds like, where you said, I know you have this problem. I don't know how to do it either. Throw me a bone and I will do it. So you at least don't have to do the work. And that is super awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
go ahead, Jason.
I said my obsession back in the day when I discovered what Upwork was, and I was like, man, there's nobody making big money. Once I learned that there was an invitation only side to Upwork, and then I learned that getting top rated was the way to do it, I just became obsessed with the 5-star review. It's like, if you hire me, I'm getting a 5-star review, and you let me know when I've earned it. Like, I'm not going to stop until I get it. I ended up getting like 100 of them, and it made it a really consistent lead source. I don't use it at all now, but it was the thing that my wife had seen enough, and she goes, all right, quit your job. There's enough here. Let's see what you can do. So it was, that's how we got rolling.
Sweet. I like it.
Wow.
And so you've, obviously scaled it a bit since then. So mostly with capital raise, is this exclusively like real estate capital raisers, or are you working with people that are doing like private equity or other sort of fundraising as well?
Yeah, mostly, like most of the people I work with are syndicators, retail investors, that type of thing. But what's interesting, and this is kind of the path of the business in general, I've talked to some people in some different angles that are like, would this model work for this? So I'm always willing to pivot when something makes sense. So, some of the people a lot of people do syndications, some do funds, some do fund of funds, but those retail investors are what most people are after. I have talked to some people that do work exclusively with family offices and institutional investors as well. So we'll see where that goes, but there's definitely a need. So I say, how does it work now? And I'm like, oh my God, you're even further behind than the other group. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, it's definitely super interesting sort of niche because, it's one of those few things that I don't think has a good process around it that's, sort of spouted everywhere quite yet. Because like the people that are good at raising money, especially look at the real estate space, they either have a really large social following, on social media or things like that, or they have a lot of connections. And sort of being able to bridge that gap between those two, because obviously making a lot of connections takes a lot of work. Building a large social following takes a hell of a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
And so it leaves like, guys like us or like so many people out there who have opportunities, like we have the ability to offer people great returns, but how do we get in front of those people to really like present those opportunities and, to convince them that they should choose us over someone like Brandon Turner, from Bigger Pockets with his 250,000 Instagram followers or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. That was funny. I was actually talking to another guy just right before this call about this. And I said, it's funny because I'm actually going to be a limited partner in my first deal. And it's like, now that I'm in that seat going, okay, how do you make this decision? I don't know what all the numbers and all the stuff means at a high level like you guys, but I know who I trust and who I resonate with personally. So a lot of times people are like, man, I'm new. How do I compete with the big boys? Well, if the big boys aren't as personable as you or aren't as vulnerable, there's going to be people that they repel and you attract. So we are all special in that way. And that's one of the biggest pieces of head scratch that people struggle with. Oh, nobody's going to want to invest with me. Well, not with that attitude, they're not,
Absolutely.
Be yourself and put it out there, and don't be surprised when other people find you and come to you. So
it is tricky from, the fundraiser side, because if you look at most funds, you're being a limited partner. You look at most people that are doing LPGP deals, or they have preferred funds, they have any of those sort of things. The numbers are kind of the same across all the deals, and they're like that because it's a perfectly competitive market, right? Everyone knows, I mean, from the fundraiser side, you want to pay out as little as you possibly can to still be able to get the deal done. And then from the investor side, you want to be able to make as much as you can while limiting your risk, right? So it kind of makes it so everything's the same. So I guess, going forward with sort of what you're doing, what does your process look like? So, let's say Dan and I, we want to raise some money. We contact you and we're like, we need to learn your process. what does that look like? How do we get started? What's sort of the expectation?
Yeah, I mean, from the capital raising perspective, I mean, the first thing that people need that some people don't realize is you have to have like an inbound flow into your email list, right? You have to always be getting new people into your world and always trying to nurture those people and kind of warm them up for the next deal. From the marketing automation piece, I look at a capital raise as a couple different steps, right? Announcing the deal is really big. Most people just like one or two emails and that's it. But even teasing that a deal's coming is really smart. Using email and text both is really smart. Email deliverability is always going to be a problem. There's nothing worse than investors like, I never even knew there was a deal. I never even got an email. I missed out. It's oversubscribed. So using email and text. If you like to push people to a webinar or a pre-recorded video beyond just a pitch deck, and that's a great idea, you can nurture to that. And once people take that action, you stop talking about it. And then after you present the info in that way, start to nurture for those soft commitments right away, right? You can use automation to supplement what you're already doing, because what I've found is touch points lead to conversions, right? And it doesn't matter if it's for a raise or a new investor or even with what I do. It's not about being annoying. It's not about being aggressive. It's about reminding people that this thing exists. Think about how many communications we get on our phone a day. It's insane, right? You may have the best intention in the world to invest. Something happens and you get pulled in a different direction. Then by the time you remember, maybe have missed your shot. So it's automating those steps from announcing the deal, the soft commit, uploading docs, wiring paper, wiring money, that type of thing. So there's just not a lot of people automating any of that right now. And without those tools, you don't have visibility, and it depends on your portal, but you don't have visibility to where that money might be hung up, right? If nobody's soft committing, what's the reason? Are people not aware of the deal, or they're not getting questions in, or what's the problem? So we can give you some visibility to those areas that you don't have it. Some feedback I got in Miami on a trip I was on recently is these guys that are using the two-way texting that we do. There's like, man, there's no greater feeling than getting soft commitments through text or getting stuff done or new people signed up. It's just so much easier than email. It really is.
Yeah.
So you're saying using the texting is a lot easier than email?
Yeah, but you got to use both. Email will always be that foundation in our lifetimes. And I always tell people with texting, don't ever cold text anybody. It's creepy. It's weird. It's a bad taste. But if you've spoken to somebody at least one time, or if they're one of your current investors, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
It's interesting. Yeah. 'Cause I mean, what you're describing isn't that different than what we do, like with sellers, with our off-market wholesale business.
Yep.
You sort of build that brand. So we usually announce the brand with direct mail outreach, right? And then we'll follow up with some different texting campaigns. Then we'll send more direct mail, and then we'll have, different, like retargeting when people go to our website and they start to get retargeted on their social media and through Google. And the next thing you know, you're kind of everywhere and you're constantly reminding them we want to buy their property. So what you're describing is essentially the same thing, but from a fundraising side, right? But you have the automations built out, which is the tricky part of it. But, I would say that's one of the tricky parts. But, and I use Active Campaign. You have some Zapier integrations. You have all that sort of stuff figured out. What about the actual content portion of it? Because I think that's sort of what makes you stand out from being, the automations help with the internal process, but in terms of actually selling it and the content, do you guys do stuff with that as well? You mentioned before we hopped on that you had a free tool about creating videos for raising capital and all that sort of stuff. But I think that's really important. So what does that look like with you?
Yeah, so that's so I have a lead magnet that teaches you guys how to build better lead magnets. It's called getmorepassiveinvestors.com. And one of the big pain points I hear all the time is, I don't know how to get people into my list, period. And using an ebook that you didn't write and putting your logo on it is not a good idea. Right? Everybody in this space is doing the same damn thing, right? So I tell people, I think I do it in this video-based little program here, and I could sell this thing for hundreds of dollars, but it's legitimately free and it's really good because I know that video shortens that know, like, and trust period big time. Not a lot of people are doing it, but it teaches you to approach your lead magnets like if you were to walk up to a stranger and say, here's what I've got. Would you buy this for $50 or more? Right? If the answer is no, you think it's that exciting? I mean, would you opt in your own lead magnet? A lot of people wouldn't because there's nothing special about them. So just an interesting way to use video. I'm a big Loom guy, right? Screen share videos. I make about 2,000 a year. Great for training the team. Great for answering questions. Great for marketing. Great for sales. Just a phenomenal use of my time. And there's nothing special about me. It's just video is that powerful. So.
Wow. So when you're talking about like lead magnets, so let's step back that far. So if you're making the content to hopefully build out that big wide funnel to grab people, how are you getting in front of those folks? Do you talk about that through some of your coaching, or is that just something that's natural we're going to have to get out there and do as people looking to raise money?
Yeah. So I like the question. The way that I always approach a funnel is back end, front end, and traffic. And that's just based on my experience as an entrepreneur. So what you're talking about there is traffic, and people get paralyzed with this, right?
Right.
In this world, the most important social channel, in my opinion, is going to be LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a monster. If you're getting, I've talked to, 150 capital raisers this year. For LinkedIn is a monster. Facebook's important. And if you like video, YouTube's very powerful as well. So, people are like, I don't know what to talk about or what to post. And like Mike said earlier, it does require a lot more effort than people think to get that momentum social. I think the big mistake is people think that just because it's online, it's easy. Still requires work, still requires dedication. But those platforms are definitely something you got to pay attention to for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, LinkedIn. So, I mean, you saying that I shouldn't be like dancing on TikTok to raise $500,000?
I think TikTok's a great platform. In a different industry, I've got a buddy that's he does online coaching for fitness, right? Yeah. It's all online, and he does just phenomenal revenue. And TikTok and Instagram is everything. It's all organic, and he's got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of followers. So there's value there because people like video. It's engaging. It's a little quirky and fun, but it still works. So
yeah. I think you got to look at the user base though, right? Fitness makes sense. It's a lot of younger people, especially if he's like, like a sexy, like fit dude, like you're going to get a lot of followers, right? Right. I mean, that's what crushes on TikTok.
Well, I think my opinion with it though is like if you're going to use it as a business, if you're going to use the platform as a business or as a lead trap, like, the girl on there dancing is always going to have more followers than you, but it's just like YouTube, same thing. Mr. Beast is massive. What's he doing? He's selling like hamburgers at Walmart or whatever. Like that's just stick. Like if you're capital raising, you don't want to sell 10 million hamburgers at Walmart or whatever he's doing. You want to find some quality folks to give you their money and invest. You don't need it all. You just need to capture the 1%.
Yep. Yeah, like I typically will post very similar content to LinkedIn and Facebook. What I've noticed, though, I feel like LinkedIn's algorithm is a lot more favorable for organic traffic than Facebook. Facebook is all pay to play. I mean, LinkedIn's got that element, but I still feel like some people can get some really good organic reach with LinkedIn, which is great. So
that makes sense.
You were asking me earlier, Mike, about the content for raises. So it varies greatly on, whoever's doing the raise. Obviously, you're going to have the numbers and stuff people look for, but I saw an approach yesterday I thought was real interesting. So the guy I was working with sends out, he doesn't give people much notice, but he sends out an announcement for a new deal and gives a 48-hour kind of preferential window for past investors. Like, hey, this is open now. Here's what we're raising. Obviously, you can oversubscribe it. Gives them 2 days to invest before it gets opened up to the rest of the list and the rest of the market because it's a 506C. And I thought that was really cool. It's like, it's not salesy. It's real urgency. It's like, hey, this is a courtesy we're doing. And that content was really different than I've seen other people do. It was really well put together. I was like, man, this is good stuff. So,
I think anything you can do to be creative like that is huge. One thing, I mean, like even people doing like sponsored content or things like that with influencers are starting to see a little bit on the rise with some of these big real estate people. You got to find a way to stick out. And Dan, I think there's what we need to do. We need to find like the top like OnlyFans chick and like pay her to like show our fund on there.
I honestly, you could we could do that. That's not.
I mean, some people are getting like Ryan Pineda or like these other big influencers.
No, get somebody that's got the biggest lead trap out there. Yeah. Nice. I love it. Yeah. I do want to, I keep wanting to step back because I want to, I'm being selfish here in how we do this, but also just for our audience to understand, like, how can they apply this to their systems? For a lot of folks, they're kind of like, they're trying to run a business like Mike and I do, which does, does require money. And if you want to scale, you need to use other people's money. But even beyond that, you can apply this system to anything. Like Mike was saying earlier, this is how we, market our properties to other investors. We do use ActiveCampaign. We try to use lead funnels. We build an email list. We build a text list. We're doing all these sorts of things. But the biggest part about that is growing that audience. And I think you used the term traffic. Yeah. Within automations that you're talking about here, is there ways that you can help automate some of that so that it's constantly kind of like mining for new emails, mining for new clients, mining for new investors?
So interesting. When you say mining for emails, my mind goes to like scrape a list or something like that. I don't know that that's what you meant.
No. Yeah, I'm just thinking because it does take a lot of, like, you got like a lot of our list that we use. I mean, it was physical handshakes of meeting people, right? We have 1,000 people on that list. Yeah. How do you do that in the virtual space where I'm saying mining, but it's like, how do you get out there in front of folks in a more of an automated fashion? Because again, you can throw up, I see some, here's a good example. I see some capital raisers out there. They put some really basic like infographic posts out there and they're not doing anything. They get 3 likes, which are all 3 of their staff members. And it's like, why are you even bothering doing it? It's like, they're just obligated to like post it. Right. And so it's like, how do you get beyond that, but also not be, if you're not a content creator for your full-time job, like that's a challenge.
I think one of the best shortcuts for good relevant traffic, and I have a success story to share with you about this too, is getting on other people's podcasts as guests, as long as their audience is relevant. So I had a conversation with a former client face-to-face 2 days ago or 3 days ago. And he said, "You're not going to believe this, man." He said, "A while back, I got on another podcast, just did our thing. And he said, I got 100 new email subscribers from that podcast because I had a clean URL to talk about, like mine, right? GetMorePassiveInvestors.com. It's palatable. It's designed that way for a reason." And he said 80 of those people became actual investors.
Wow. That's a high percentage.
I said, "So let me guess." And he's got a VA. I said, "Let me guess, so-and-so's part of her weekly duties getting you on podcasts." He's like, "Hell yeah, it is." So like, if you don't have time to run a podcast, right, get on somebody else's show. You know how it is. I used to have a podcast, right? Finding guests, eventually you get to a point where you're like, shit, we need more guests, right? Get on somebody's podcast, give them value, but make sure their audience is relevant to what you're doing. It's a great use of your time. And people get to, especially with you guys sharing the video piece, people get to see you and hear you. Man, that shortcuts some things. But that's why I'm always like, you can have a lead magnet on your website, but having its own custom domain is always a better option because you're going to get better conversions, right? Either opt in or leave. And then if you make it with a palatable custom domain, not a subdomain, it's easy to share face-to-face podcasts, webinars, etc. Right? So there's some thoughts for you. I was going to tell you earlier, Mike, your idea or what you guys are doing with direct mail mixed with automation, beautiful. Love it.
Yeah.
So many people abandon direct mail, but the guys that are coming back and doing a hybrid model, I always hear great success reported.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess we haven't done that necessarily for fundraising. That's what we do to find all the properties that we acquire.
Yep.
So yeah, we have a pretty big system built out where we do all that sort of stuff, but cool. Right on. So one thing I wanted to look at really quick, because this is like sort of a real estate and business podcast. So what you're offering is super cool. I want to take us a quick glimpse into like the entrepreneurial side of it from your perspective.
Sure.
I think that'd be super helpful to a lot of people that we know, especially people that listen to this and that work with us in our group coaching, is they're always trying to figure out how to build like the business model and the process for what they're doing. So you said you started with Upwork, and I imagine it was you doing it yourself. What does that look like now, and sort of how have you structured everything?
Sure. So now about 98% of our fulfillment on our projects, I don't do. My US-based team does.
Nice.
Now that process took 2 years to build, right? So I was like, so here's the realization. This is just straight up entrepreneurship stuff here, which you'll like. There's about 3 years in a row where my revenue was within about $10,000 in this 3 years. I'm like, I was like, what's the problem? And finally I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, it can't be Jason. So even though I can build you anything you can think of, I can't sell custom work. I can't scale it. This is not scalable with funnel building. So the front end, I stopped doing the design work because I can't take army wives and stay-at-home moms, most of my team, and say, I'm going to teach you to become a designer. Design's subjective anyway. I might say, Mike, this looks great. You might say, it sucks. Start over. I just wasted a ton of time, right? So I was like, I'm cutting that out of the business. We're not doing it. I can't teach effective paid traffic strategies to people that don't want to learn it or don't care. So I was like, the back end, I can make screen share videos. I can teach you step-by-step how to do stuff, help you understand why. And it took me 2 years to get the first person to go, okay, I understand what we're doing, right? So since you know it, can we teach a third person? So once we've built that out, there's myself and 3 other people on our client-facing team. We call it the client success team. So I sell, they fulfill. If they need high-level strategy or some crazy custom stuff, I can do it. It's like 5% of people. So we can handle probably 10 times the volume of revenue that we're doing now, which is phenomenal. No more scaling problem. And if we get bigger, I know what pieces to fill in and say, these videos are here for you and these 3 people can help you and they want to. But it took me like 22 months to get that first person to go, okay, now I got this. So people say, why don't you add a HubSpot? No, I have to become an expert and teach that? Hell no. Never do. You want to work with us? Here's our lane. Otherwise, wish you luck or work with somebody else. It's not because I'm rude, it's because I know what's scalable and what makes sense. So.
Right.
Nice. So that's your US based staff. Do you have any virtuals that do admin work, or is it literally just the?
So everybody's virtual. No one's in Indiana with me. So
I guess I mean like overseas VAs.
The only overseas we have is a guy in the UK that helps with their blogs, but we don't have everybody else is in the US.
Nice.
So it's me and my wife and 6 others. So
perfect.
Wow, nice. Yeah, cool. I like what you're doing. It sounds like from kind of what I'm hearing, you've brought this up a couple times. Is like you're just like niching down and getting rid of anything that's not scalable or that you can easily teach. Like just get rid of it, put your blinders on, because it's so easy to build a business and try to capture all the edge cases. And as Mike and I know, like it's impossible to build a process around all the edge cases. Like you just can't. So what you're saying is you're like, cut those out. Let's niche down to a very target audience. Let's niche down to a very targeted system. And it sounds like you're finding a lot of success that way.
Yeah, and this is what I went through this for years myself, right? The easiest way for me to talk to people is based on my experience. No theory here, no bullshit. I don't care what anybody else is doing. It's just my experience. But I remember going, I have to pick a niche. I don't know what it is, right? And people struggle with that. And I tell people, if you can broadly figure out the niche, as you start to work with people and listen and pay attention, you'll find the smaller niche within the niche. It's a journey, right? It's not like a destination. So ours has changed and pivoted. I would have never guessed 2 years ago that I'd be working with capital raisers specifically. I had worked with a few, but if you said, what's a capital raiser? I'd be like, oh, I have no idea. So, so just be willing to just don't be married to your ideas, right? For me to say I'm going to start this world-class motivational speaking company, maybe it circles back someday, but maybe not. That's not the business model now. The business model now is really simple. I actually had a guy a couple months ago said, I want you to build my website. And I was like, I'll build websites for people. He's like, no, I really want you to do it. He goes, name your product. I'll pay you anything you want. And I was like, no. He goes, I don't understand. And I said, because if you pull me there, everything else that I'm doing goes to shit and I hate my life. I'm working crazy hours. Right. And it's not worth it. It's not worth the bait. So no, he was just like, okay. So, but it's, if you stay in that lane and you keep it simple and you cut out all the shit you hate, you have your time back, right? We get to travel all over the damn place. My neighbors think I sell drugs. Like this guy's in basketball shorts. He's all over the place. I'm like, what's this guy doing? Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing. But it's now that I look at the business versus what it was 3 years ago, it's so simple now. It's such a simple funnel. And it's like we just keep doing the same thing. So
nice. Yeah, that's a good spot to be for sure. And I think that's a good lesson as well for people who are starting anything new, or are trying to scale anything. Is, I mean, we even see that with like people that are in our group or even other people just that we know in the space. Is like they like flip a couple houses and then they're like, oh well, now that I've done that, they're gonna like go a completely different direction. They're like, now I'm gonna try and be a syndicator. And they're like, okay, I syndicated for like a tiny property. Now I'm going to go and try to be a lender. And, we have a handful of different businesses that we run, but most of our stuff, same sort of thing that you. We spent years, we got things on mostly autopilot where we kind of just have to nurture it and keep it going, keep it moving forward. And that's what allows you to do it. And so most entrepreneurs or people that are trying to build a business, like what you described there, where someone said, "Oh, I want you to build a website." I guarantee you that 90% of more amateur entrepreneurs would have been like, "Cool, I guess we're a web design company now." And they'd go and they'd find the guy.
We have a web design department.
Yeah. And it would just turn into a freaking nightmare, right? But that's also why most people don't get anywhere and build out a system like you have. So.
You know, it's interesting on that note, you guys may know this, but I heard this statistic one time and it blew my mind, and I thought about it. I go, no, I can see that. Most entrepreneurs will never make $100,000 in revenue ever.
Wow.
They will quit before they get there.
Yeah.
Wow.
I can see that.
Yeah. I believe it though, because it's hard to, it really is like what you're talking about, Jason, is not easy to do. But it's hard to focus on the right things, because as an entrepreneur, especially as a new business owner, you have 100 things you can focus on, and the revenue producing items, you might have 5 ways to produce revenue. If you pick the wrong one, there you go. So you got to make sure you pick the right one, be iterative, and have the wherewithal to get past all the roadblocks.
Yeah, I remember feeling guilty saying I don't want to focus on the money because I want it to be about whatever, the mission, right? But then when my wife was like, "How are we making money?" and I had spent 2.5 years focused on my brand and my colors and my logo, I was like, I have no idea. I don't know. I can't answer the question. And then I heard another saying somewhere, and it said, "Revenue solves all problems in business." And I go, why am I not focused on revenue? And then as I started to make that shift, it led to a very different experience. So it's important stuff to take in.
Yeah. Money does matter. And revenue can hide a lot of poor operations or poor things in the background, but that's okay because you're still making money.
Yeah. Exactly. The machine needs fuel, right? Otherwise it doesn't go anywhere. So
yeah. And even though people say they don't care about money or that money doesn't buy happiness, I don't know, man. Money can buy you a jet ski. You ever seen an unhappy person on a jet ski before? Yeah.
I also like 3 meals a day in hot water. You ever taken a cold shower? That's
exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yes.
I stole that joke from a stand-up comedian. So just in case anyone calls me out on that, it's from Tosh, who made that in the back.
Jet skis.
He's like, money buys a jet ski, man. I've never seen an unhappy person on a jet ski before.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
It's true.
Awesome. Cool. Well, it sounds like you got a pretty sweet operation built out. So I guess what's next for you? Where are you sort of headed with what you've built?
Yeah, so we're going to keep doing what's working on the client side of the business. But recently I've said, you know what, I'm going to leverage this success and go after other people like me, high ticket coaches, agencies, high ticket service providers. And I'm putting together a coaching program to teach them how to build infinite scale, same way we have, right? 6 things that I've done. So I'm gonna go back and target Jason Wright from 3 years ago and leverage that success. So it gives us some task variety and a very dynamic, different piece. But I already know it's going to work. I know it's going to work and it's going to be successful. We're also creating some courses for Active Campaign. Active Campaign has the resources, but nobody ever seems to benefit from them. They're like, yeah, I've seen the videos, the webinars. I still don't know what I'm doing.
Why is that so true? Honestly, though.
They have the wrong people creating their stuff. It's like people creating it. You're like, this guy hates his life. This guy's going to jump in front of a bus today. So we're going to take the stuff that we know people need and sell, and we're going to make courses and the people that want to DIY and create that income stream as well. So the nice thing is I've done that in the past and failed so many times with coaching programs and courses, but my clarity around it, and I'm in a place where I've given myself permission and said, you're worthy, you're ready, let's roll. So that's perfect. The next 18 months, what we're focused on is all that stuff.
Cool.
Love it.
Awesome. I like it. Sweet. Well, coming up on time here. So we just have a couple wrap-up questions that we like to ask. We'll alter them a little bit because they're typically the real estate focused, but you're obviously more focused on your entrepreneurial side. So first off, though, what do you think is your secret sauce that allows you to be so competitive in what you're doing, or that's allowed you to build up as you have done?
Yeah, so our secret sauce is just the way we connect with people and we take care of people, right? We offer a couple of lifetime guarantees to all of our clients, and you're just not going to find that, right? So many people are just like, we get paid, here's your thing, good luck. And we're like, we get paid, here's your thing. And if you have questions forever, if anything breaks, reach out to us. We got your back. And it just makes a big difference. It creates a ton of loyalty, ton of referrals. So just our ability to authentically connect with people, deliver more than we promise. Just the basic stuff that seems to be non-existent anymore.
Wow.
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, customer service. That
I love
matters
that.
a lot.
That's so...
Yeah. It's shockingly hard to find.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, that makes sense. And so our second question that we normally ask is, what is your craziest real estate story? You know, you're not a super active investor, so you might not have that. So what if you ask, what is your craziest like business or sales related story?
Ooh, man. I don't even know, man. So I guess good stuff, bad stuff, whatever I want to come up with.
I mean, it can be anything.
Anything.
In between. Like we had some guy came on a little while and he talked about his craziest story was when he walked in on a contractor who was shitting into a paint can, like a paint tray, because he didn't want to use the
I forgot
bathroom.
about that one.
You know,
so hey, that's not normal.
No. So we've had stories like that. We had another guy who talked about he had like a fund that he ran, and he had an investor that did a 1031 into their fund with like a $4 million profit. And then he bought the same property back with the fund from the buyer who went bankrupt at less than he sold it for. That was his crazy
big
positive story. So whatever you got, if you have one.
Okay, so I was working with this guy one time, and still in the Upwork days, and he seemed really nice, right? This guy seemed really nice. He was willing to pay me a ton of money an hour. It was the weirdest thing because with Upwork, generally there's at least a conversation, right? And then like somebody who could send you a contract, but never spoke to this guy. Never spoke to him once. Never heard of him. And at the time, business was not going well. So like telling my wife, like, I don't know how we're going to pay this mortgage. Like I have no idea. Can't figure it out. We used to do that all the time. First 3 years were nothing but struggle. Yeah. And I get this contract through Upwork, sight on scene. And I think it was like $150 an hour. And I was like, oh, what's that?
I could do that.
So it's like turn it on, and it gives me access to active campaign in the contract, and I start doing the stuff. And after like a couple of months, it's like, hey, this has kind of got to stabilize. Like we're doing okay, but it's so weird. I never spoke to this guy. So I finally talked to him. He seems nice. He puts together this 3-year contract worth a ton of money for the business. Right. And we signed up, and things were fine for like 2 months. So then he comes back and he's like, I can't afford to pay this anymore. So violates his own contract. He's like, we're going to step it down and cut back the responsibilities. And this guy would violate and change the stuff all the time. Right. So stopped working for him. And it was his by his choosing. Like a year later, he's like, you owe me all this money. And I was like, what do you mean I owe you money? What are you talking about? This guy just went completely off the rocker and said, like, I violated the contract. And I'm like, are you on drugs? Like, what are you talking about right now? So we went through all this stuff, and he was like, I'm going to sue you and all this stuff. And then I like got an attorney involved, and then the guy just like walked away. Like, I don't know if the whole thing was a game. It was the weirdest scenario. Nothing ever happened, but it's the weirdest scenario I'd ever seen. I actually got an email from him about a year ago, and he asked me a question, and I was like, he's just trying to see if I'll respond. I didn't respond, but when we were going west 2 years ago, or no, this year, we went through a state which I won't name, and I see the sign for the town that I know the guy lives in. I was like, she'll pay so-and-so a door-to-door visit. We're not doing it. We're not doing it. And I was like, I can find his address again. We didn't do it, but it was just a really weird situation. And I was like, I'm not doing contracts with people like this ever again.
Wow.
But the whole thing was just really weird. So
a lot of red flags there. Probably trying to find some way to extort something from you.
I don't know, man. But here's what's funny. I found out after the fact that his father had been to prison for white-collar crimes for like 20 years. Yeah. I was like, oh, this is the family way.
Yeah. Exactly. Wow. Yeah. Well, did you at least make decent money from him?
I did for a while, but then it
got weird.
He's like, and it was weird because like him and his wife were like on a Slack workspace with us, but he wouldn't allow her to work in his office. So she would send us messages, and we would talk to him, and it's like she would be like, I'm scared. Like I'm like, I don't know, what am I supposed to do? Like, it was really weird. The whole thing.
I'm scared. Okay.
We have like a list in our business of like 3 or 4 first names. If we mention, like my wife and my team get chills, and his is one of them. So.
Oh, geez.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Crazy people out there.
Oh yeah.
You get involved in those relationship deals. That's fine. We had a seller like that a while back that we were buying the house, and Dan got a call one day from the seller. I shouldn't even
closet.
talk about this. It's horrible.
Yeah.
She's in a closet, and she was like, "You need to save me." There was a lesbian couple. She's like, "My wife is holding me hostage and forcing me to sell the house," and we were like, "What?" And then we, got this whole thing involved, found that she was like faking it and she was trying to get out of the deal and like all this.
It was weird.
Too much drama.
Yeah.
Way too much.
No, that's cool. So awesome. So last question for you. What's the best way for people to connect with you? And what is, I guess, the main offering you can give to our listenership if they want to know what to expect and reach out to you?
The main website's intentionallyinspirational.com. Main value I can provide is probably that lead magnet there, and it's on the website. You'll see it at the top. But getmorepassiveinvestors.com. Again, it's focused on teaching you to build lead magnets that have actual value, right? Not something you can knock out in 5 minutes, but it's video based, and I think you'll find it wildly valuable, honestly. So there you go.
Right on. I like it. So guys, if you guys have any interest in that, go and check out Jason and what was it? One more time. Intentionallyinspirational.com.
Intentionallyinspirational.com. Yep.
Perfect. And he can help you figure out how to automate your raises. And besides that, Dan, any last things from you?
No, loved meeting you. Really appreciated and learned a lot from you today, Jason.
Perfect.
Yep,
awesome.
I enjoyed the laughs as well. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Jason. Really appreciate it. And everybody, thanks for listening. Go ahead and leave us a 5-star review on wherever you listen to your podcast. Subscribe and share it with all of your friends who are trying to figure out how to raise money but don't know how the hell to do it. They should reach out to Jason. He can help them out. So awesome. Thanks so much, everybody.
See you.
Thanks for listening. Please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out at collectingkeyspodcast.com for tips and guides on starting your own real estate investment and wholesaling business.